Well, that didn't work at all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Down in the Valley. And apparently, and that is why. No, that's not going to work. En vivo, ladies and gentlemen. Estamos en vivo, ladies. There we go. That's a whole lot better. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. My name is Edson Ochoa. It's time to talk a little bit more about RGVFC. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we've got the game against Charleston Battery that happened last Friday. And of course, I'm still in cloud nine because my favorite driver, Daniel Suarez, signed my flag on Friday at Texas Motor Speedway. Y de ahí no me van a bajar, ladies and gentlemen. But as always, I am not alone. I've got my good friend and co-host Jacob Young. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing well. Looking forward to talking a little bit of soccer and looking forward to the time that we will get information that Adolfo Hernandez has parted ways with the RGVFC and more money for the RGVFC Toros to sign more players.
Well, it may not be Adolfo Hernandez, but there is some transfer news that we will be talking about later on in the show, so don't go away just yet. But before we continue talking about today's topics, let me introduce to you once again a good friend of the podcast and the main honcho behind South Texas Border Sports, Ray Silva. Ray, how's it going?
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the invite, and Jacob dropping a little bombshell there with Adolfo. Didn't he mean to say Dylan Borjak?
Well, someone had to let the cat out of the bag. But yes, we will be talking about Dylan Borjak's transfer to Memphis 901 FC. Like I mentioned, we will be talking about everything going on with the Charleston Battery match that happened on Friday, including some unfortunate circumstances leading up to the game. But before we go on, let me invite you all over to follow us on all of our social media at Down in the RGV on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we go live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. unless there's a midweek game. In that case, we'll be going live on Thursday, which is going to be the case for next week because the Toros will be facing off Memphis 901 FC next Wednesday. Also, if you guys are listening to the audio podcast, like I said, be sure to subscribe there. And if you're watching this live stream right now, be sure to check out our audio podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor FM, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast in case you miss any part of this live stream. So, gentlemen, let's go ahead and talk about everything that's going on with Toros Nation. Now, as you probably know, the Toros were going to have the Toros had a Friday match on Friday over on the East Coast in Charleston, to be specific, or as I mentioned in the last post-game video, Charlotte, But if y'all recall last week's episode, we were talking, Jacob and I were talking about, we were very excited for that match. We felt that, given the circumstances, it was going to be I'm not going to say it was going to be an easy match, but it was going to be a simpler match compared to the game against Colorado Springs Switchbacks, right? We considered that Charleston Battery was coming off a bad moment overall in the 2022 season. In fact, they are officially eliminated from playoff contention in the Eastern Conference. But as other players have mentioned in the post-game conference against Colorado, they mentioned that it's these kind of teams that can go in and play spoiler whenever they want because, they have everything to win and nothing to lose at this point. In fact, you've got some of these players that are pretty much, they're playing for a spot for within their roster next season, and that makes it a little bit more dangerous. So we're feeling really, really, really happy about it. Then Friday morning comes along, and I get a notification from a source saying, "Hey, you know what? You may want to hold on that eagerness for today's game. Because something's been going on with the team when they traveled, right? So when I received that, I was like, oh my god." Like I was just like, man, this is gonna be one of those days, isn't it? I was so excited for it, and I felt, oh man, like I can't believe this is going to be the end of the streak, right? So anyway, fast forward to the end of the day when the Toros match is happening, the announcers for the Charleston Battery match mentioned that, hey, the Toros did have some travel issues coming into Charleston. They mentioned somewhere in the ballpark around 24 to 36 hours of travel time in total, and so you all know that traveling gives a lot of fatigue, right? Because of just sitting there for a long time in an airplane. That we've mentioned before, the change of time zones. Now you at the fact that a lot of these players probably didn't get enough sleep going into Friday, considering the fact that they didn't make it until Charleston until I want to say early in the morning, maybe like 6-7 in the morning local time. So it was going to be a tough battle for RJVSC, not only against their opponent, but also within themselves, within their body, not getting the necessary rest that they needed, right? So today, during media availability, and Ray was also present there at the press conference, Wilmer Cabrera did confirm a little bit more details about what happened. He mentioned that the team, as I mentioned, made it to Charleston early in the morning. The hotel only had breakfast for 8 people because of limited supply or limited manpower within the hotel. Total, not everybody ate breakfast at the time they arrived. Some players, tried to catch up on sleep at that moment. But at the end of the day, like I said, it was just whatever horrible, nightmarish travel you guys can imagine, not including natural disasters, right? Multiply that by 3, considering that they have a high intensity match going in that same day. But Jacob, Ray, first of all, before we move on to the actual details of what happened in the match, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Thoughts on all of that are pretty standard now for traveling, in my opinion. You can't expect perfect travel at all, ever, anymore. I think it's standard. Flights are going to be delayed. Hotels, you got to be there the night before for them to know how much to make for food and stuff like that, even though it's kind of dumb, but what do you expect? I didn't think that would affect RGVFC in general for that day, just because, well, it's standard travel. I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, it is, in my opinion, where if you're not staying at a Radisson, then you're going to have poor service. And even with flights, I've had multiple flights delayed for no apparent reason and missing a connecting flight and things like that. So I just did not think that would affect RGVFC too much heading into the match.
I think you have a really good point, Jacob, because I think what many people now understand, especially in this post-pandemic situation that we're living at right now, it's very normal to hear about delayed flights, canceled flights. I mean, my sister and I experienced that firsthand coming back from Orlando, Florida on our vacation, where, you know, we had a situation where storms in, I forgot what airport it was. It might have been Charlotte, or I don't know, somewhere in that area, right on the East Coast, delayed the plane that was coming to Orlando to take us to Houston. And I think we were there for maybe like 3 hours, you know, waiting for something to be resolved. Fortunately, the airline that we took did move us to another airline, but other people aren't lucky, right? Individuals, and I'm surprised that it has been, actually, no, not really, because I believe it already happened to another USL team earlier this season, where they were stuck, I believe, in Dallas airport. They were traveling over to the West Coast, and I believe that game had to be delayed or to another day because of that, because they were stuck at Dallas airport and they were not able to travel to their destination because of canceled flights, right? So it sucks, right? Because, you know, you've players need their rest, players need their nutrition, but it's a lot of these things that it's out of their control, right? And unfortunately, it has a potential to negatively affect a team, especially when they're going to be playing that same day, right?
You know, I'm just surprised that we haven't heard more stories from across the USL regarding this matter. I mean, this is probably like the second or third story that I've heard a team being affected in the USL Championship. I mean, being that there is no direct flights from Rio Grande Valley to Charleston, South Carolina, your connecting plane is probably in Dallas uh to Charleston, assuming that is a the flight path. I mean, it's just uh kind of surprising that RGV almost fell a trap to the traveling issues, and
Mhm.
that there wasn't any further delays that could have caused that game to be reshuffled into already a congested calendar.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from what I heard, it was horrible. There were horrible delays, and like Wilmer said, they didn't arrive until early in the morning, the day of the game, right? So, unfortunately, that's the state of traveling, of air travel nowadays. I think you can only do so much, especially with the limited budget that USL teams have when it comes to creating itineraries for away games. I don't know exactly all of the details, what the budget is for all of that, but unfortunately, those circumstances kind of leave you exposed to these situations that are outside your control. But fortunately, now moving on past that, unfortunately, the Toros were able to perform besides that point. And you know, I want to kind of look forward into the match, because the Toros played well in the first half. I mean, Ricky Reese had a clear opportunity in the first minute of the game. Once again, despite the fatigue that the players could have had, Wilmer Cabrera continued to show some sort of high pressure at the beginning of the match that granted them some opportunities in the box against Charleston. And considering the fact that, you know, you've got Monterey Bay, you've got Oakland Roots, you've got a lot of teams in the Western Conference that are on your tail trying to get back into playoff position. This game was as good as any to be able to get the 3 points that'll kind of help solidify, or at least give you some peace of mind going on into their next game. And like I mentioned, you know, Ricky Reese had that shot early in the game. I believe there was another. I think there was a shot by Pinson, maybe in the 16th minute. But you started to notice the team kind of losing that grip on the game as far as the possession of the ball. You started to see the fatigue kind of creeping in on the players. Charleston began to dominate the possession a little bit more. In fact, as the first half ended, both teams had 6 shots. 2 were on target for RGV. 3 were from Charleston. Had similar stats, but it seemed like that Charleston weren't able to get some decent opportunities off of the goal from Tyler Derrick. So at least in that aspect, it seems like the players were able to adapt to their circumstances and try to minimize the damage in the first half.
Yeah, it was a nice first half for RGVFC. Even though they were slow, they hadn't necessarily woken up. You could definitely tell that there was some fatigue there. But it's crazy because to have somebody behind goal like that, Tyler Derrick, being able to really lead that team from the defensive side, it was nice to see. And even then, RGVFC just to be able to pick up basically from where they left off a week ago, even with that less sleep or anything like that, they were able to still play that counter-attacking football, counter-attacking style soccer, which is kind of cool to see. Because again, I mean, in the end of the game, not talking about any score or anything like that. In the end of the game, it was 54% to 46% with possession. Charleston Battery had more of the possession. So really that counter-attacking soccer, even in that first half, really played the difference, in my opinion, for RGVFC. And of course, Tyler Derrick kind of saving our butts for sure.
For me, the second half, the way RGVFC was just, as some people using Twitter, a little bit of it was the prolific football style that Rayados of Monterrey would play, because they can sit back and absorb the pressure, but then at the same time, they can come at you and be prolific on the counter attack, which was very nice to see. In which I said on Twitter, and I'll say it again, I thought it was the most ideal second half that the Toros have had all season long. And it's due in part to the way that the team was able to rebound, re-energize themselves at the break, considering all the circumstances that they faced.
Wait, Monterey Bay plays good soccer?
No,
No,
Monterrey, Liga
Monterrey,
MX.
Liga MX.
Yeah, I figured that's what y'all were talking
So-
about. I just wanted to give a dig to them.
So it's interesting, right? Because one of the things, kind of falling a little bit off topic, but you mentioned Rayados de Monterrey, Ray. But there for Tigres fans, it was a whole criticism of Tuca Ferretti that the team played well defensively, but offensively they were extremely slow. It was they recover the ball and pass and pass and pass and pass and pass and pass and pass. A lot of the times that possession really didn't have any or very little,
It had little significant offensive priority.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of, but I just couldn't find the words, right? This, however, what we're seeing from the Toros, it's kind of like we've wanted to see from the team, from Miguel Herrera, instead of this whole disorganized attack-only mindset. But this is, I think you can say it's the best of both worlds. One of the things that I enjoyed from this Toros game was the ease of how the Toros would recover the ball, and in 3 or 4 passes, they were already in the opponent's 18-yard box. The first 2 goals, they came that way. First one, I believe it was Juan David Cabezas recovers a ball in the midfield, and then quickly sends the ball over to Pinson. Emilio Icaza sends it over to Pinson, and Pinson, cuts inside and then takes a shot reminiscent of Andre Pierre Gignac back in 2015. That kind of style. Get him in the wing, cut inside, take a shot from outside the box, hits the underside of the crossbar, and goes into the net. By the way, that goal is actually nominated for Goal of the Week. So be sure to go to the USL's website and vote for Christian Pinson for the Goal of the Week. Definitely, football champagne, la verdad. Second goal, little bit similar, but this time the origin of the play is within the Toros' own 18-yard box, right? Charleston was attacking through the middle. Wahaba Akwe recovers the ball inside the 18-yard box. And once again, in 4 passes, they already had, I believe it was Ricky Reese, running towards the goal, passes the ball towards Christian Pinson, and that's where the second goal occurs. But also, what I liked was, yeah, you saw that counterattack, but then you also saw when needed, biggest example, the third goal, where they felt just as comfortable with possession of the ball. Get it, pass it back if you need to open up the Charleston defense, which they did. They fell hook, line, and sinker because they were desperate. One of the things that the broadcaster repeated many times during the broadcast was that this team was attempting to please their new president that was just signed, I believe, this past Tuesday of last week. And he mentioned multiple times that this team was these players were trying to please or to convince this new president of staying over to the with the team for next season. And a lot of times what that happens in that attempt to please, you want to try to do a little bit extra, or you fall into the trap of, being desperate, trying to recover the ball. And the Toros played it. You already had the 2-0 in favor, but they played it perfectly, played with that desperation. Pass the ball on the left side, pass it back, cross it over to the other side, and then build up the play again towards Pinson. Pinson gets the shot, gets blocked by the keeper. Juan Pablo Torres, who had just recently come in, gets the rebound and into the back of the net. And I believe that was in the 86th minute. But like I said, it's just their ability to kind of adapt to different circumstances within the game. At least in this game against Charleston, it was very pleasing to the eye.
For me, I'll just say that Ricky Reese, if there's an award, a team award that will give him most improved player from the beginning to the season, all the way through now, he's a serious candidate.
Mhm.
No doubt about it. Because even though like the guy has tried and tried to become that catalyst on offense, even though that role hasn't suited him, he has
Mhm.
found ways to be very effective on the offensive front, whether it wouldn't be that offensive catalyst, even if he has to sacrifice himself a little bit wide to where he can become a second distributor to the offensive front, which complements Ikaza really well, and to overlap and to cross into Pinzon or Felberg, whoever becomes available in that area. And Edson, just to counteract your football champagne, uh, that's what Tigres fans use, but Rayados would say football porno. But
You mean no por?
no por, yeah. But yes, I mean, definitely Ricky Reese has got to be in that conversation. Um, and and then for me, I guess that third goal was just a simply stunning thing of beauty. I mean,
Mhm.
you and not only do you play from so deep to just start to springboard a nice counter, but the way it was finished off was just perfection.
Yeah, and it's also crazy how many shots on target for RGVFC could have gone in the back of the net and have been top 10 goals just in general. Like looking at one from the 72nd minute where it just gets saved right at the end. Number 10, Juan Pablo Torres, JP Torres.
Wait, number
That was
10 is
almost a
Gringo. Number 10 is Jose Francisco Torres.
Yes,
Sorry,
20
Jose
20
Francisco. I get them mixed up when it just says J Torres. But my point is, Gringo Torres almost has a screamer, and it's almost amazing. But it was a fantastic save by Charleston Battery's keeper, and it's a consistent thing of this team all of a sudden can attack, win focused, win 100%. And we can say all we want about they weren't 100%, which makes it worse for Charleston, which is just amazing. All three goals, I mean, the second goal was lame compared to the rest of the goals that we had in that night, which is just insane. But yeah, it's offense. I'm so happy to say the offense is clicking. I did not expect to say this a month ago.
Juan Click TV, by the way, JT, welcome to the stream. He says, Gringo scores that, I quit my job. I feel like Ray wants to say something about that, but real quickly, I want to take a look at what the chat is saying. We've got Harry Austin. He says, "What's up down in the Valley Nation?" Jacob, Ray, and Edson, hope all is well. Keeps telling me that this is not a NASCAR show, and hopefully it stays that way. I don't want to make the same mistake I did with soccer. Sometimes I told that to my mom. Unfortunately, once you start knowing a little bit more of the inner workings of soccer, you kind of don't enjoy it as much as you used to. But I'm just going to enjoy NASCAR as a fan. Harry also says, congrats to Jacob on moving to YouTube Gaming. Hope it helps you take you to the next level. By the way, he was live today with some iRacing, if I'm correct, Jacob, right?
Yep, was live today with some iRacing. Very fun, crazy, tough Talladega race, but always a blast to race it.
And on Facebook, Jorge Peña Jr. says hi from McAllen, Texas. But what I was saying, so guys, you remember a couple months ago, per se, after, I think it was before the Toros went on that extended away tour. Here on the show, we said that it looked like RGV lost their motivation to try to shoot from outside the box. Usually it was only Emilio Icaza that would shoot from outside the box. And when he did, it was either the shots either lacked power or they were very wide, right? It seemed like the team was just so focused in spamming crosses inside the box, hoping somebody would be able to reach it, whether it was Frank Gaviria or Adolfo Hernandez, with no avail. Now, with Pinson and Feelberg, it seemed like not only those two players are more open to trying, shots from any kind of way, whether it's from outside the box, from inside the box, trying to dribble past the defenders. But it seems like that motivation is starting to pass on to the rest of his teammates. You mentioned Gringo Torres, Jacob. Did you see that rainbow flick that he made on that Charleston defender? And then take that shot from outside the box that was this close from going into the back of the net. Yep. You're starting to see Ricky Reese, like I said, in the first minute from outside the box. That ball was deflected by the goalkeeper. I feel like that could have hit the crossbar, or could have easily gone in as well, right? But we're starting to see all these players not only take shots from outside the box, but also get those shots inside the net. How many times did we talk about in the beginning of the season, how their shot accuracy needed to improve greatly because they were like in their 20s or their 15s or something, very low percentage. Now you're starting to see, like, for example, in this game against Charleston, the Toros had 16 shots, 7 of those were on target. Almost 50% of those shots were on target, and that is not counting blocked shots, which is 6. If we assume, like, let's say at 6 of those blocked shots, let's say 5 of those were in direction of going on target, you're talking about 12 out of 16. Let's say 10 out of 16. If we want to be conservative on those numbers, let's say 10 out of 16 had the potential to be on target. That is a huge improvement from the beginning of the season, and that is starting to reflect on the scores that the Toros are bringing in this late into the season, and why the Toros are now back in playoff contention, despite our refusal to believe that that would ever happen this season. And I am talking about myself, at least for myself.
I mean, you hit rock bottom, literally being in last place in the West. I know I brought that up last week, but it's very, very true, Edson. You don't believe a team can make it back to at least 7th because, I mean, they perform so bad and poorly. It didn't seem like this team cared that much, or Wilmer cared, or just something at that time. Again, now it seems like this team cares so much that 5th place is on the table. But it's just that truth of, if the players don't seem like they believe, if the coaches don't seem like they believe, why should the fans? Why should we? That's how I felt. Now, again, I don't know about you. Like you just said yours. I don't know about Ray, how he felt. He probably stays more neutral than we do, because I mean, he's been in the journalism world for a long, long time. But I'm speechless sometimes about this team now. It's amazing. I love it. Hopefully, and get this through everybody's head, this team stays for the most part for next season. Sign every player that has made a difference now, so that we can be ready for next year. I know that's getting ahead of myself, but it's so true.
Mhm.
And yes, Edson, I do want to say something about the J Torres. Thank you, Fatma, for confusing me, because uh as the game was progressing, I was working college soccer, and having an iPhone and Fatma, it's like they don't meet each other so kindly. And that's why when I tweeted out Gringo, kind of like try to make it sound like Martin Tyler's Aguero's call when they scored against QPR in that Premier League championship. That's why I tweeted out what I did. Um, but going back to what Jacob says, this isn't about a neutrality thing. It's just the way the sports environment works. No 2 days are ever the same. You don't get the same two exact stories in sports. That's the number one thing uh you have to understand when you get into this. You just don't get the two similar stories. It's like, for example, Rick Shantz loses his job at Rising Phoenix. So what now for Phoenix? Do they go back and rehire Shantz again? No, they don't. They they poach Oakland Roots' job, and now they're hanging on for dear life. They have to beat Sacramento tonight just to even stay mathematically alive. But when it comes to this team, I mean, expect everything. Expect everything. Uh, that's all I can say, because yes, you guys have noticed that this team has been, for the last 2 seasons, it's had slow starts, but I guess this is just a learning combination of what this team can really do if it has everything right from day one. And it's not necessarily going to mean that it's going to be very successful, but it's just the way this industry works.
Mhm. Yeah. So the thing of it is that we had seen, or there was, you can say, the precedents that RGV, for example, last season, most of the midseason acquirements um, didn't pan out. Some of them didn't even play, end up playing, right? So when it looked like the Toros were struggling and midseason comes along and there was this some sort of, at least for me, there was a sort of pessimism that this is going to be it. I don't see uh where this team is going to find uh their requirements to be able to bolster up the offense. And then all of a sudden you bring in Jonas Fielberg back and I was like, okay, I like this. Then you bring in Christian Pinson, who I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know much about Christian Pinson from Liga de Ascenso. I guess I should have listened, I should have watched some more Bocer Salseo Futbolero videos, but for the
Hashtag
expansion.
dancing mariachis.
Oh man, that's, I love it. I love it. It's just hilarious. But anyway, um, now all of a sudden, like I said, you're starting to see this huge improvement. Uh, Last time we talked, I think you said, Jake Ray, it was 16 or 14 goals in 8 games. I think you mentioned that. But after the Colorado Spring Switchbacks game or something like that. Hello.
Yeah, I hear you. Yes, you, you were dancing around that stat line with Colorado Springs, and but yes, I mean, it just seemed like, yeah, for a point, it kind of felt like it was a little bit helpless at that point, Edson. I mean, you're not wrong.
By the way, huge shout out to Mike Reyes. He says, "Shit, I'm late. What's up, guys? What's up, Mike? You're never late. Where everybody's just here too early,
We're
but
just getting started, Mike.
yeah, pretty much. So we talked about the goals. Obviously, we talked about Christian Pinzon. He is now at 7 goals and 2 assists since since he signed for the Toros, and he signed in July. I remember because I was on vacation in Orlando. I was actually in line for I believe it was the Star Wars, the Star Wars Rise of the, I forgot what it is, Rise of the Jedi, the new ride. When I saw the notification for Christian Pinzon signing, so I remember it was around like maybe the 6th or the 7th when he was announced. Since then, he scored 7 goals and 2 assists. Guys, before that, our leading goal scorer was Frank Lopez with 4, Robert Coronado with 4, and I believe it was Emilio Icaza with 4 as well. And now you've added the goals from Fielberg, the goals from Ricky, the goals from Christian Pinzon, which is 7. So this offense is starting to fire off. So weird flex. Okay, JT. No, but it's honest. Like, I'm being honest. It caught me. I was just trying to remember, like, so you guys can get a general idea of how recent that signing was and how much of an impact he's made in that short time span. I mean, we already what? So that was like I said, that was July. So in around 2 months, or almost going to 3, he's already scored. He's already performed this much. That's amazing. We wish we could have more signings like that, which is doable. But like I said, their impact within of itself and how it affected everybody else around the team positively, I think that is the biggest deal we get out of the signing. Because on paper, this team wasn't bad. You had Gringo Torres with a lot of experience in Liga MX, in national team. Eric Pimentel, experience with Club America, experience in Liga de Ascenso, experience, I believe, in Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken, too. You know, I mean, the guy had experience. Um, Obviously, you've also got the experience of Tyler Derrick in MLS, the experience of Juan David Cabezas in MLS. I think one of the things I said was like we needed experience out front. And while he may not be super experienced, like I say, like the amount of years of Tyler Derrick and Juan David Cabezas or Gringo Torres, but the experience of what he learned at Liga de Expansión, it brought a different dimension to the Toros that is helping them right now. So just like I criticized, and I said it before, just like I criticized Wilmer for some of his signings, like Adolfo Hernandez, who was also brought by from Liga de Expansión. But that's the difference, right? You bring in Pinson from Chivas Tapatío, which is relatively, I'm not going to say like they're the best team in Liga de Expansión, but they can get some results done, right? They're decent. And compare that to Adolfo Hernandez, who, from what I was told from a journalist that covers Pumas Tabasco, by the way, Pumas Tabasco was pretty much bottom of the league in Liga de Expansión. And Adolfo Hernandez was pretty much a reject at that point from Pumas Tabasco. So you see the huge difference in the potential that they bring. Now, it could also be, like I said, that maybe there was some incompatibility between Adolfo Hernandez and the play style by Wilmer Cabrera. Well, whatever it was with Christian Pinson, it fixed what we thought was a mistake in grabbing somebody else besides Frank Lopez to help out on the attack, because it was pretty much Frank Lopez that scored the goals for us as far as forwards. He gets injured, he gets sick. Now there was nobody else to score goals and kind of be a reference for this team offensively. Now I bring Christian Pinson on the wing, Jonas Fjellberg in that roaming forward, and it turned around for them, which is good. And I feel like I just rambled on and on and on and on.
You know, you mentioned Pumas Tabasco. I'm just gonna say hashtag Gimpompo, another Bolser reference. And to clarify that on the Christian Pinzon, uh, again, straight out of college, he signed with the Tapatio, which is Chivas B team. For those of you guys that don't know the intricacies of Liga MX, uh, Tapatio just happens to be kind of like their farm team. But yeah, I mean, I just felt like he his his signature kind of reminds me a little bit of Carlos Small. You know, when we acquired him from a loan, he was an instant impact that helped the attacking need at the time. But I just feel like there's more flexibility with Pinzon, because he he came from a system in Chivas where you just didn't know what type of team they were going to put out there, you know, and when we're bringing him to the United States has been a helpful wonders for him. I mean, I just felt like his style of play has suited the Toros' needs very, very well.
So before we continue, actually let's get Jacob's thoughts, because there is a question here in the chat that I want to bring up with y'all before we move on to the rest of the topics of today. Jacob.
All right. Yeah, I was just gonna add. I mean, good thing that the difference is that we have more attacking options too than just Carlos Small when Carlos Small is here. So that's a plus. So if Carlos Small, let's say if he does fall off, we have more players that can contribute, which is always a plus. But yeah, it's just it's really good to see how well that he's performed and how well also Wilmer Cabrera freaking knows how to sign players too. It's something that I know Edson and I have not been fond on, but all of a sudden this man has proved all of us wrong that he can be the player that this team needs. It's just like we said, puzzle pieces, and we're finding every puzzle piece possible. And I think this team can still be better. They're still missing a couple of key pieces, and I think that's just because I want this team to be perfect and I want a championship. But that's going to be very, very much later on. But this is a great, great balance for this team having more of them back. I know that I've said this multiple times, but it's true. You sign him back, you sign everybody possible that it's needed, and these transfers looking like the saviors of this team.
So there was a question on here in the chat that that JT brings up, and he says he wants to get all of our thoughts on. He asked, "Who is each of you guys' sleeper contributor to this squad right now?" I want to say pretty much asking who we believe is the team's most underrated player this season.
I'll go, I guess, real quick. Well, sleeper, it's somebody who has woken up and all of a sudden has been pretty decent. He's your favorite player, Edson, by far. That is Frank Nadarce. In the last two times that he's been able to start, he has helped contribute with great defensive plays, which is absolutely amazing. Yes, we could say all we want to about these non-sleepers, but I think that's a real sleeper. All of a sudden, he's gotten more minutes, more games, and he's looked great on the defensive side. That is my sleeper by far.
So usually when someone is referred to as a sleeper, it means somebody that you never thought was going to be important. Like let's say in the term, it comes from the car world.
I don't
So
think he was. Yeah, I don't think he was going to be that important because of how bad he was at the start of the season as a player.
Okay.
That was to me.
Okay. Ray.
Oh boy. If you were going to ask me for a season long answer,
Yes.
oh man. I must I must say I'm gonna say Jonathan Ricketts. I'm gonna say Jonathan Ricketts only because the dude uh the guy for me has been he's been very effective and in his position of being a wing back that he is, or left back or right back. Um, yeah, right back according to transfer market. I just feel like he's been that player that has filled or that has checked off every box possible. I mean, he'll animate himself to score every once in a while. It's just one of those things where I think he has checked off every one of those boxes that you want from a defender.
I think for me, my number one was also John Ricketts. But for me, I think if it's not Jono, it definitely has to be Wahabakwe. Because given his pedigree, or not pedigree, but I mean, he was coming in from Loudoun United. And you don't necessarily correlate good defense with Loudoun United, right? But he comes in, he partners up well with Eric Pimentel, and he has consistently been a solid defender for the most part this season, especially in the second part of the season. Early on, it seemed like he was a little bit, he was trying to adapt again to, the USL Championship, to the play style of Wilmer Cabrera. to his new teammates. The fact that Eric Pimentel at times wasn't available, had to play alongside Daniel Luis Saez. And you already know ad nauseum what I think about Daniel Luis Saez, against alongside a Frank Nadarce that was injured for the beginning of the season, as I've been told. But yet he continued to be, one of the best defenders. He's good at clearances, good at blocking. His great long passes as well. The accuracy that he makes these long passes. He scored. He assisted Emilio Vicasa. I think it was Emilio Vicasa against Atlanta United too. And then again recently against New Mexico United. So I was not expecting Wahab Akwe to be as good as he is. In fact, I dare to say he has been consistently better than Eric Pimentel. And yeah, that's exactly what JT's saying. Keep in mind, Wahab had to carry the defense with Puma's absence. So, Mike says Akeem O'Connor-Ward. He says that for him, he has been a sleeper for him.
For the mid-season acquisitions, I totally agree with Mike. If you're rephrasing that question of mid-season acquisitions, definitely I'm definitely with Mike on the mid-season.
So hopefully that answers JT's question. And guys, if you guys have any more questions, put it in the chat and we will try to give it some time to answer those questions. If not today, probably on social media as well, but we will get any questions answered. That was a really good question. That is going to be OfferPad question of the day, brought to you by OfferPad. No, I'm just kidding, guys.
FarmersOnly.com.
Oh my God. Anyway, so moving on, back to the game. Here's another thing that caught me off guard in a positive way. We talked about the fatigue, right, from this team. But yet, in the 70th minute, that goal line save from Ricky Reese, phenomenal. The fact that he was able to muster up energy to run at full speed to the goal line to avoid for that header by, I want to say it was Matthew Sheldon from Charleston. The fact he kind of intuited, his intuition was this guy's gonna shoot because Tyler Derrick had misjudged that cross by that free kick, so he was out of the play, right? Because it got deflected first by Andrew Booth. But the fact that he had the intuition to run towards the goal line and was able to meet the ball at the goal line and avoid it for it to go into the back of the net, that shows commitment by Ricky Reese, and I'm very thankful. I just have to say that because it's like I think any other team would have said or would have excused themselves, like, we're tired, this whole thing happened to me. We talked today, right, Ray? We talked to some of the players. We talked to Pinson. We talked to Juan Pablo Torres today at Media Availability, and we kind of asked them about the situation, and they were like, I mean, we could have easily used that as an excuse to say, oh, it didn't happen. I mean, we were tired, so I mean that excuses us. They said no, like, we're already there at the stadium, regardless of what happened. We still have to give it our 100%, and this shows how committed these players are to Wilmer Cabrera and RGVFC's cause to get themselves as perfect as possible and make themselves to the playoffs and hopefully make it farther than last season. With I guess you can say that they had more named players than what they do this season, and yet look where they're at right now. I mean, they're still possible. It's still a possibility to make it to the playoffs. So
Exactly. Just imagine if we had beaten Malik Foster and Roro too. That's 2 extra points to be exact, because we still stole 1 on the road. And that would have mattered a little bit. But my point is, it's amazing. This team, with a lower budget than a lot of other teams in this league, and not having the stars that other teams have, like I mentioned, for Sacramento Republic to be up where they're at, for them to have that type of run, for us to almost knock them off, pretty freaking amazing. It's just that fight. We have, at least in my opinion, from 2017 onwards, I have never seen a fight from a team as much as this team. It goes back to that play that you just talked about, 79th minute goal line clearance. It is true. This team could have definitely died, could have definitely said, yeah, no, did you not hear what just happened to us in the past 24 to 32 hours, or a little bit less than that? Yeah, we are exhausted. We have not had sleep. We are fatigued, everything. They could have said all that stuff, but no. I came back and they played their hearts out. I think even if that goal goes in, even if the goal line clearance is not successful, I think this team still wins 3-1. I think they still score those goals because they were that motivated. If that goal goes in the back of the net, oh well, they'll shake it off, and I think they get those two other goals. Or if that time it was still
so
it was 1-0.
So that brings me to a tweet that our friend Der Schadenwolf from Germany tweeted at us during the game after that play. He said that what could have been a 1-1 and ended up eventually being a 2-0, 3-0, just that switch or that change in momentum that could have been if Charleston had scored that would have killed, for me, that would have killed the motivation from some of our players. It would have been a little bit more difficult to be able to come back from it. Maybe they could have, possibly, right? Hindsight is 2020. But it would have been a little bit more harder for them compared to the fact that with this goal, now you're entering their mind saying, you can't score on us. No matter how hard you try, you cannot score on us. There's a statistic that I have here on my notes from the game where in the second half, the Toros finished the game with 16 shots, right? So Charleston, despite having more possession of the ball, they only managed to muster 4 more shots in addition to the 6 shots that they did in the first half. And almost all of those shots were from outside the box. They weren't able to clearly get a good opportunity inside the box. So they were trying to find as best as they could how. And when the clear opportunity comes by and they can't score that affects the team mentally negatively. And obviously, good job on RGVFC for taking advantage of that. But had that goal been entered, I feel like it would have been harder because now Charleston is motivated, right? That they were able to score against a really good defense. So they would have kept pushing for the second. And, so I mean, that's my theory on that. But I'm glad everything happened the way that it did. Now, there's another newsworthy event that happened in this game. We're already at an hour. But in the 83rd minute, Ollie Wright makes his debut with RGVFC officially after a preseason injury. It's been a long time, but Ollie Wright is back. What did you guys think about his performance in those 7+ minutes?
I'll take the boat on this one. I mean, congratulations, Ollie Wright. I mean, that's all I have to say to you, man. I mean, for you to have that strength, that patience, for you being off the field that long. I mean, I know there's other professional footballers that go to go through an injury much longer than that. Just congratulations for coming on, man. I know, like, every time I would see you, you he'd have he was a very upbeat person, very happy person, but you can just sometimes see it in his face, like the disappointment, like of just how close it was for him to coming back on the team and actually now just getting minutes. And I feel like for some odd reason he's going to be that wild card that if Frank Lopez is a no-go, I just feel like Ollie Wright's gonna have to like step into those major shoes now. He's gonna have to shoulder some of that responsibility of trying to be that attacker that RGVFC needs, because yes, you've been playing with like four makeshift attackers per se. All of them are attacking midfielders, and it's been working out pretty well for now. But I just feel like RGVFC needs the full. They need that solid number 9. Yes, Pinson's been scoring goals, but the way he's placed on the field, he's an attacking midfielder. Jacob, I'm just interested to see what you have on the thoughts of Ollie Wright.
Yeah, I think Ollie Wright's a great player to have back. It's tough to judge a player off of 7 minutes on the field. Let's be real. What is he doing in practice? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to see more of, because until he's played a full 40 minutes, at least 45 minutes, like one first half, then we can get more details into how he's going to be playing. So that's fine. Now, like you said, getting a real number 9 is going to be fantastic. It's very touch and go right now with Lopez. It's very touch and go with Frank Lopez. We don't know whether or not he's going to show up this weekend, whether or not he's not going, if he's still going to be injured, or for the following week. He's been nagging an injury for a while. It sucks. That's how sports is. It's how soccer is. It stinks to see, but once you get that real number 9 in for that full time, maybe right off the bat, this man for the first 40 minutes, he's going to look insanely good. And all of a sudden, this team, RGVFC, is going to have this real number 9, not necessarily going to have to worry too much about Frank Lopez. And he's going to be a perfect fit going into the final 2 games and going into potentially playoffs. So I'm excited to see what he has to offer. 7 minutes is too little to judge off of a player in general.
As I think that so JT puts it in the chat. He says he plays Pinson's position, and Pinson has been playing with Wilmer Cabrera kind of as the left winger, left back, or not left back, left midfielder. I like the speed that he brought. There was another instance right at the end with a counterattack that he showed a lot of speed. Obviously, coming off of an injury, he's not going to be at 100% match fitness. But there's a saying in Spanish that say, "Sabes un comelón de cómo agarra el taco." And it's apparent to me that Ollie Wright has something special that he can help bring as a backup for Christian Pinson. Because let's be honest, the way Christian Pinson has been playing, it's going to be difficult to take away the starting position from him. But Ollie Wright comes into this play at a good time when you need it, which is at the very end with a potential playoff in the horizon. And if something happens to Pinson, there's no like an injury, COVID, or a sudden drop in play, well, now you've got a backup with Ollie Wright. It's just a matter of getting him acclimatized back into match fitness little by little. And hopefully you won't have to need him for an extended period of time before he's 100% ready for it. But I like what I saw from him. I'm looking forward to see what else he can bring. And I hope that this season is not his last with the Toros. And hope to see him get another shot at a more extended performance next season, come the 2023 USL Championship season. And following that similar topic, we talked about how great Christian Pinson is. Now you've got Ollie Wright in the mix. The question was, where was that going to leave Dylan Borjak? And on Monday, it was confirmed by the club that Dylan Borjak was transferred to Memphis 901 FC for an undisclosed fee in if I recall correctly, a multi-year contract. So the young 17-year-old, I think he was 17 when he came in. If I might be wrong, but he was really, really young. He had a lot of potential. He was one of the few positives from this offense in the beginning of the season. He ends up leaving 2 goals in 9 starts from the Toros. And like I mentioned before, he was one of the few bright spots early on in the season for RGVFC offensively. There were many times where he would come off the bench and he would revolutionize the attack for RGV. Unfortunately, they weren't to be able to score goals, but they had clear opportunities to score said goals. It just wasn't, they just weren't accurate with the shots most of the time. But the chance creation was vital from Dylan Borjak. But now you bring in Fielberg, you bring in Pinson, and it was pretty clear that Dylan Borjak was not in Wilmer Cabrera's immediate line of sight as far as starting positions. I want to assume that Dylan Borjak was hungry for some minutes, saw that the opportunities were going to be slim to none, and here comes Memphis 901, offers him a multi-year contract. I'm going to assume, considering the precedence of all these other former Toros players, that Memphis 901 offered him maybe, if not the same, maybe a little bit more of a salary. Obviously, that is not disclosed, but that's what I'm assuming, or at least, a promise to give him more minutes that he was getting with RGVFC. And so now Dylan Borjak is officially a Memphis player, and I thank him for everything that he gave to the Toros. And best of luck to him at Memphis, except when we play him next Wednesday. But Jacob Ray, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, what a guy. That's how I can start that. But it's interesting, of course. How long has he been out of the roster, really? Of course, the last 2 home games, we had seen him in the locker room at least, coming off the field. So he was just on the bench. If I had to guess, like you said, either it was the team's decision or his decision to come up to the team and being like, I see all these players coming in. Am I going to get any more minutes, or should y'all put me on the transfer wire? And they obviously put him on the transfer, or what I would say the transfer portal. I know that's a college thing, but it's true. And Memphis 901 were most likely saying, sure, we'll get you. You can grow a little bit more with our team, and we'll see how he goes with that team. I think he was very, very close to getting a goal with RGVFC when he had that chance. It was just not going to happen then. So Wilmer needed to make a bold decision, and that decision paid off for the team. Hopefully, Memphis's decision to get him is going to be a perfect decision, and he's going to get a goal. Not when RGVFC plays him next Wednesday, but he can get a goal anytime after that when RGVFC are not playing him. Because if I'm not mistaken, we finished off the season playing them twice. Or I'm thinking of Monterey Bay. But either way, still fantastic player, cool dude. Wish him the best. It should be very interesting to see how he does with Memphis 901.
So
Yeah.
Ian says, so far we go with Ray, he says, it was obvious Dylan was leaving. Wilmer stopped using him.
No, well, I mean, look, I mean, it's in the player in Dylan Borjak, he was a college graduate that turned pro this season, and it's kind of difficult when you're a college player breaking into the pro ranks. You know this. Not that the writing was on the wall for him, but when Wilmer decided to pull the transfers uh for Jonas and Christian, you kind of like uh, we really never touched the subject until the club made it official about his transfer, and it didn't catch me off guard, but I'm not gonna be surprised either by it because here's a player that early on we didn't have a lot of offensive options. We didn't. And it was one of those things where, he became surplus to the
Mhm.
team as far as attacking options were concerned. And it was needless to say that at least with Memphis going into next year, he's going to have that opportunity to impress because, I mean, n- some of the teams would say that, hey, you're here in a multi-year deal, and then we have yet to see that RGVFC would say that about a player in a press release.
But here's a question that I have.
Okay.
And this has nothing to do with analysis or anything like that. This is more of my fan side uh coming into light into with this question, right? But I look at this, right? I look at this transfer, and like you mentioned, he wasn't getting any minutes here. But with the firepower that Memphis 901 FC currently has in the USL Championship, do you really think that Dylan Borjak is going to get a considerable amount of more minutes at Memphis 901 with an already established attack? Because you're looking at them. Let me bring up their stats. But do you really think that with this team, he's going to get a considerable more amount of minutes over there than what he did over here? Because you're looking at Memphis having a goals in favor of 60. That is tied for third best offense in the USL Championship.
Mhm.
Okay, Edson, if you're going to talk about numbers and things like that, fine. I mean, you're, let's just say you're not wrong. But if you're going to go with that route, okay, let's just put it in for example. Their top scorer has 19. Everyone else that is behind them, they're at least in a single digits.
Okay.
Okay. So there's that route. And the guy that's in second place, he's also the an attacker, but everyone else is a midfielder. I mean, there's no other player who in the offensive front has scored uh goals for this Memphis side. It's Philip Goodrum and Jeremy Kelly, and that's about it. I mean,
So basically, what you're saying is that Memphis, despite the huge amount of goals that they scored because of one person, they were in a similar situation as the Toros were at as far as offensive depth is concerned.
yeah, but the thing is that they get contributions from their midfielders, something that we're barely starting to see. That's the huge difference is that from day one, they're a team that got contributions from all over the place, whereas it took us a little past the halfway mark to to get those types of contributions.
So Ian says Dylan was my favorite, but Wilmer did a great job recruiting Pinson and Jonas. They are lethal with their chances. JT says that we're missing a true striker like Dylan, though, which is, I think, one of the points that you're trying to make, Ray.
Yep.
And then Ian also adds Dylan could
And
be a
and
super
and
sub as
then
well.
not only that, but their playoff position is already secure, and their next set of games, uh, they're at Miami, then they host
RGV.
RGV, they host Le Baby Bulls, and they're on the road to Tulsa. And you got to imagine that both their strikers are playing on some tired legs because both their starter strikers take up about 35% of the offense. So maybe there might be an opportunity for him to get some minutes in against Miami, maybe against Memphis, and maybe against Tulsa because their playoff spot is secure. It could fall down to maybe a second or third because Tampa Bay and Birmingham are behind them for that second spot, but that's just the way I see it. They just need that extra set of legs in the front to determine eh, just to determine their polishing of their playoff position. And they're not that far away either as for a number one either. So it's a two-way argument on my end.
Jacob, you want to add anything else before we move on to our predictions for the Saturday's game?
Yeah, I think Dylan's going to have plenty of minutes there. I really do. Just like Ray said, there's a lot of games where they're probably not going to be using their strikers or their starters due to road games. But besides that, why would you, if it is a multi-year deal, most likely, why would you sign somebody to that if you're not expecting them to play? So I really do think that he's going to get a lot of minutes and it's going to be worth it for him to be able to prove himself, especially at the end of the season and heading into 2023. Memphis is already looking to their future. They might not get that same thing. Who's to say that a lot of those players are going to move on to potentially the MLS if they're good enough? Because if you have a 60 plus goal differential, then there's a good chance that a lot of your strikers are good enough to move up. So that's just, my 2 cents. They're probably pointless 2 cents, but it's worth it for me to, point that out that most likely they're thinking about their youth and thinking about there's a potential where if he's good enough, then it's going to be worth it.
So JT brings up a good point that helps both of your arguments. He says they have to use them ASAP because of the playoff cutoff. They don't want them to have a similar situation we did with Jonas Fieldberg last season. When is that cutoff? Does anybody know when that roster cutoff is? I thought it was late September because I know last year was on the 25th, which was my birthday, or the 24th, I think.
Yeah, that playoff cutoff roster thing already happened. I'm just quadruple checking my roster here really quick. But yeah, what do you call it? Yes, the one of the things that I I will say about that is that the
So JT says it was Friday. So if I recall correctly,
it was last Friday.
Yeah, but if I recall correctly from last season, from what Nicholas Murray told me when I inquired about this whole Jonas Fieldberg situation last season, he said that the players needed to play with their new team before, or actually, no, hold on. I'll have to double check. So I'll leave that pending. I don't remember exactly if he had to play in the USL Championship in general before the roster deadline, or if he had to play with his new team before the roster deadline to be eligible to participate with that team in the playoffs. I'll have to double check that. I might have to send another inquiry to Nicholas Murray to see what he says about that. I don't want to be spreading around misinformation at all in this podcast. But guys, anything we want to add before we give our predictions?
Quema no quema.
We'll leave that for next week. I didn't have enough. I didn't have time to transcribe the quotes from today's media availability. So, but we are gonna give this this a try. A quema no quema ka segment. Similar to if you guys listen to Door Bumper Clear with their spot on, spot off. I want to try something like that regarding to whether we agreed or disagreed with what players and coaches, mention in press conferences, whether it's in at games or at media availability. But we'll leave it for next week. I want to give it a test run, see how the fans like it, and see if we can continue doing that for next season. But anyway, moving on. We need to finish this up real quick because my cousins are pestering me that they want to play FIFA Pro Clubs already. Quieren hacer corajes conmigo because I'm not a good striker in FIFA Pro Clubs. But anyway, Louisville is coming this Saturday, October 1st, to HEB Park. First time if I recall correctly, this is the first time that these two teams meet in history.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, what is your prediction for this upcoming match?
Well, let's see here. I'll go first on this one. I think it's going to be a simple 3-2 RGVFC pull it out. I think it's going to be a close match and like I said, 5 goals scoring. Basically combined 5 goals. That's what I was trying to say. But also want to add this, and they will rue the day that this club, yes, I'm talking about this organization, I guess, Racing Louisville, also decided to sell the rights to Olympic Reign for Tobin.
Tobin Heath?
Mm-hmm. Because Tobin Heath should not be with Olympic Reign. Just saying.
Ray, what is your prediction? And guys, in the chat, you guys are more than welcome to give your predictions as well, and we will be mentioning them right now. Ray.
Okay. Regular prediction, we're gonna draw 1-1. And the reason I say it's gonna be a 1-1, Louisville is playing for home field advantage. Okay. Let's not forget that Louisville is number 1 in the East, but the pestering neighbors of San Antonio want their share of the number 1 seed as well. So that's why I'm going to say it's going to be an even Steven draw. It's going to be a entertaining draw. It's just going to be 1-1.
Okay. Mike says prediction RGV 2-1. Louisville cannot handle the heat. JT says, are we doing prediction based on Edson's attendance? Well, take into consideration, I will be at the game. And the Edson curse has officially been dead and buried in the tracks, as confirmed by the number one bullier of the Edson curse. So my prediction, I'm going to go ahead and say 1-0, a 1-0 win. I do think that Louisville, yes, they are going to be coming in trying, like they say in Spanish, está tratando de buscar los platos rotos after their heartbreaking loss this weekend against Memphis 901 in the last minute. Malloy was almost going to make the Oso de la Semana with that shot, but somehow it ended up in their favor anyway. But they're going to be coming in trying to mend, their quest for the home field advantage. As Ray mentioned, they are fighting against San Antonio for that shield, as well as the home field advantage in an eventual, if they do make it to the final in the USL. So they can't be dropping points left and right. They're currently 7 points behind San Antonio, which is already difficult enough as it is to try to catch up in, 4 games left that Louisville City has? 3 games left. So they are pretty much, at this point, Louisville City have no room to spare. They have no wiggle room to try to sneak a home field advantage from San Antonio. San Antonio has to lose the rest of their games, and they cannot drop any points in these last 3 games against the Toros, against Detroit City, and against Hartford Athletic. So they're going to be coming in, with their focus 100%. Yes, like we mentioned, they've already clinched playoffs, but they're not going to settle with that. They want that home field advantage. They want to hopefully win a cup in their own field at Lynn Family Stadium. So, but I don't think that they have encountered as good of a defense as we see from the Toros and get a positive result. Yep. Against Memphis 901, the Memphis has 29 goals against, and they lost 2-1. The Toros have 35. Let's see, Tampa Bay Rowdies, when they've played against Louisville, well, they've won 1-0, right? So, but it's not going to be a blowout. And I do think that with how Pinson is doing right now, we can probably make the what am I trying to say? We can make damage to them and get a positive result at home. Plus, like Mike mentioned, the weather is going to be a factor. I don't think they're going to be 100% used to the heat, and but
it's still Louisville, Kentucky. It might be cooler now, but their summers are pretty brutal.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think Louisville is gonna be winning by a blowout. In a regular prediction. So, let's go with bold prediction, Jacob.
Bold prediction. It is going to be I take that back. There's going to be a good amount of rain on Saturday. No lightning, just rain to where the field can take it. And it's going to be a sloppy game. And it is going to end up being 9 players on each team. RGVFC still barely eke it out, though, 2-1 this time. Yeah, low scoring because, again, rain and wind will be a factor.
One of the things that you got that everyone overlooks about Louisville City, they just know how to play on the road so well that they went into El Paso and beat them, a team directly affecting us in the playoff race. This is their last trip to the West Coast. Okay, their previous trip before that, they lost 4-3 to Los Dos. With that in mind, that they play so well on the road, 2-1, and there's gonna be a tragedia. They're gonna put a last minute scare on us. They're gonna bombard poor Tyler Derrick, that we're gonna have to have everyone in our defense defending for our lives for them to get a last second equalizer.
So you're saying 2-1 loss as your
2-1 win.
2-1 win, bold prediction.
Yeah, but they're gonna be bombarding Tyler Derrick like you have no idea.
Okay. All right. So Ian says 3-1 Toros as his regular prediction. He says, I predict the refs will not be good. LOL. I mean, that's a given. It's pro refs. What can you expect?
It's pro refs at HEB Park. That's where they do bad. They can do good for us on the road, as we've seen.
Look,
here we go again.
Hey, let's look. The facts are there. It's in the facts are there.
Hey, look, and also, you got to keep this in mind. Harry has to be a closet RGVFC fan too.
Oh, he is. He did say that he did say earlier today that he wants RGV to knock off Louisville City and 901 FC. So he's going to be rooting for the Toros.
But here's the thing, RGVFC have to play for RGVFC. They cannot play for anybody else, which means getting the 3 points, because in the end, you are fighting still for a playoff spot. It's not given yet. And let's be real, I don't want that 7th place as a fan, and just as a fan, I don't want that 7th place. I'd rather have a 5th place, a safe spot to where maybe, just maybe, you can potentially host a second round game if all comes to fruition where 7th place beats the 1st place. Just saying
Second.
that, or yeah, beats the 2nd place. My point is, there's a very, very slight possibility of all of that could happen. So if RGVFC were to get like a 5th place in the standings, they'd be in a better situation for the second round than having to go over to San Antonio just like last year. And, well, let's be real, getting our butts whooped.
So,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
I just hope that Jacobo Zuniga and Carmelo Alvarez don't show up at HB Park. If those two refs show up, it's over.
Valiendo mal. So Ian says the ref helped us out in San Antonio for sure. I disagree entirely, but I guess it was just horrible for both sides, because that was, I still say it and I'll say it again, that offside call that disallowed Pimentel's goal was
Oh
not
yeah,
an
that's right. That
offside.
was not. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, but I think oh, my bold prediction. I'm almost forgetting. I me estaba yendo sin dar mi bold prediction. My bold prediction for this game, RGVFC surprises the USL Championship, and Louisville City will go back to Kentucky with 3 goals against. Toros are going to win 3-0 once again. That's my bold prediction.
That's bold.
It is very bold, because like we mentioned, Louisville is a good defense. They only had 26 goals against, and they are a very good offense. So the fact that they perform the opposite of what the stats say on Saturday is definitely going to be bold. Could you say that it's possible? Maybe, but we do have to respect the history within the USL Championship. Obviously, overall, they're not very historic, but the history of how their performances in the USL Championship, we have to respect it. This is Louisville City, after all, traditionally a very potent USL Championship roster. So this isn't going to be easy, but it is very doable, and it's on them. It's on the Toros to be able to get themselves a positive result. For me, I pretty much think that I'd be content with a draw, honestly. So, but we'll see what happens. By the way, quick update. Sacramento is currently losing to Phoenix Rising 1-0.
Wow.
Kind of helps both. Not gonna lie. I mean, if
Wow.
Sac Republic keeps dropping points, and if RGVFC, let's say, go undefeated, there's a good chance things can change.
Yeah, keep in mind Sacramento has no Roro tonight, so that's just one of the factors for tonight. The Sacramento has no Roro.
Well, that's interesting. So Mike says bold 4-0 Ollie with 2 goals in the second half. Okay. And JT says everyone just forgot that the Toros allowed less than 1 goal per match against top teams Omega LOL.
Well, Michael has a really bold prediction for him going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all I have to say. Him calling his shot with Ollie Wright scoring a brace, that's kind of bold. I'm not gonna lie there.
Yeah, because when Ollie Wright gets back to the locker room, he'll be sat with an agent and coach Wilmer Cabrera before Wilmer meets his team with a pin and the contract right in front saying, we're signing you for next year, an extension right there. Just watch. If that happens, that is exactly what happens in that extra room that I saw in the locker room as I took a little peek. It's kind of past the locker room. It's like with a little couch and like a table. They'll sit him right there and he will sign an extension if that happens.
All right,
my
guys.
word.
Before I sign off for tonight, I'm just gonna leave you with 3 tidbits. RGVFC is ranked 10th in goals conceded per match, so they're top 10 defense, and have scored 10 in their last five. On the flip side of the coin, Louisville ranks second in big chances created, courtesy of Fatmob, who confuses JP Torres for Jose Francisco Gringo Torres.
Just like I do.
No, but Fatmob sent me the notification though. That's the only
Okay.
issue I have with it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be difficult. But I think that if the Toros do get the result, it's gonna be a huge statement win for the USL. Watch out for the Toros if they're able to get a good result against Louisville and a good result against Memphis. I think a lot of people might actually have them has the Toros as the dark horse if they are to enter the playoffs. But first, step by step, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Our destiny is still not set in stone when it comes to a playoff ticket. There's still a couple of games that need to be played in order to actually be able to clinch that playoff ticket for the second year in a row against all odds earlier in the season from all of us. I know we were very pessimistic about it, some more than others, but as we say in Spanish, Wilmer Cabrera nos dio un cachete. Wilmer Cabrera nos dio una cachetada con guante blanco. And that's all I can ask for. Prove us wrong when we criticize and say, oh, this can't be done. Or, prove the couch coach is wrong. That'll be us. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight for the 26th episode of the 5th season of Down in the Valley podcast. Don't forget, guys, we are close to celebrating our 5th anniversary, which is officially October 15th, which is exactly the date for the regular season closer at HEB Park against Monterey Bay FC Union. So I'm so happy. We couldn't have gone this far without all of your support, without all of you giving our videos a like, without your interactions on social media, without your shares, without all of your subscriptions to the YouTube channel and your listens to the podcast. As I said, follow us on all of our social media at Down in the RGV on Google, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. Be sure to also check out our audio podcast version. If you guys missed any part of this live stream, check it out on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, or wherever's your favorite podcasting platform. I want to thank people like JT, like Mike, like Ian, like Harry, for their support and checking out the episode tonight live on Facebook and on YouTube, as well as Stephen Ricketts and Jorge Peña Jr., who tuned with us on Facebook. Ray, Jacob, anything you guys want to add before we close?
Excited for Saturday. Looking forward to the game. It should be a good one. And let's hope Bars VFC can keep their momentum and just get even closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, I want to add one last thing. So I found the USL media guide, and page 64 of the media guide reads, for playoff eligibility, any field player on loan from another team, including intra-league loans, must have played a minimum of 5 regular season games to be eligible for playoffs. Any one of these must occur prior to the roster release date, and this rule does not apply to academy players. However, players signed to 25-day contracts are not eligible for playoffs. So there's your response on the Dylan.
But it says loans, and this was a full transfer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but he had already played the 5 games.
So he's eligible for playoffs.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that answers that question. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see each other next Thursday. Don't forget, next Thursday, because the Toros are playing Memphis on the road on Wednesday. We'll see each other next Thursday for another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Jacob, Ray, thank you so much for hopping on tonight to talk about the Toros. And be sure to check out all of their ventures. Obviously, you've got Ray Silva with South Texas Border Sports. Be sure to check out his YouTube channel. Check out his podcast as well. Similar platforms as the Down in the Valley podcast. Be sure to check out Jacob's YouTube channel, The Overreacted Gamer, for videos, for vlogs, and live streams related to iRacing and racing news and chat as well. Be sure to support their projects as well as mine with Down in the Valley, and of course with the Striker Texas podcast for this the Striker News, where I also help analyze and talk about the toros on a more broader term for the state of Texas, alongside reporters like Jonathan Check for San Antonio and Joe Rodriguez for El Paso Locomotive, and our good friend Roberto Silva, former GM of Austin Bold, currently executive director of the Striker News. Thank you so much. We'll see each other next week. Be safe out there, and I hope to see you all this Saturday at the stadium cheering on for the Toros against Louisville City. Oh, and don't forget to share this podcast with all of your friends, guys. Please do us a huge favor. We want to grow this community, but that's all I ask for. Guys, see each other. Good night.